DoorDash scare. When I was a 22-year-old woman, I used to do DoorDash on the side for some extra cash. This was in the summer of 2018, when it was a little bit newer, at least in my town it was. Since then, I think they've made a lot of changes, but at the time it was a little disorganized. If you don't know what DoorDash is, it's like a food delivery service, typically for restaurants that don't deliver. Think McDonald's, other fast food, etc. Anyway, one night I was doing deliveries all day and decided to do my last delivery around 10 p.m. So, I get an order in and the person wants a medium cheese and pepperoni pizza with loaded potato wedges from a nearby pizzeria. I was kind of wondering why they'd order from a pizzeria that delivers, but I figured it's because this place was notorious for taking forever when you order for delivery. I accepted the order and headed to the pizzeria. I got there, picked up the pizza, confirmed on the app that I had picked everything up, and was on my way. The app notified me of the special instructions that the customer asked for, which was to call them when I was outside. Okay, nothing unusual there. Lots of people ask that so they can come out to me. I get to their address and it's downtown. It's a larger apartment building and it's completely pitch black, and I instantly get an eerie feeling. I pull to the curb, stay in the car, and call the number. Luckily, DoorDash has this thing that hides your actual phone number. It rings a few times, and then this really creepy woman's voice comes on the line and says, "We can't get to the phone right now. We're a little tied up." And then creepily giggles. Meanwhile, the entire time in the background, there is another woman screaming. And I mean screaming for help and for her life. It got even louder, as if the creepy woman was purposely putting the screaming woman on the phone. I instantly hung up and drove off real quick, not even knowing which direction to go. Luckily, there was a restaurant that was usually populated a couple blocks away, and I pulled into that parking lot. I was a little worried about getting into trouble for not being able to deliver that order, so I contacted DoorDash Help Center and they told me I had to wait 15 minutes to see if those people would call me or message me about their food. Well, they never called, and thank God for that. I'm sitting there in the parking lot of the restaurant telling my mom about it, and we agree that it's probably a prank, but just in case, I should call the police. So, I call the non-emergency number and tell them everything. The police tell me they're going to do a wellness check and actually thanked me for calling them to tell them about it. I went home and nothing ever came of it, but I still think about it from time to time. I did get a free pizza and potato wedges, so that was cool. But to the screaming lady, I hope you're safe. I live in a major city and currently don't do a lot of driving due to ongoing issues with my car, and the pandemic has made me turn to more delivery apps in general. So, the other day, around 1 p.m., I decided to order some lunch after doing a lot of cleaning. I placed the Uber Eats order and found something to watch while I waited for the food. Within a few minutes, a driver accepted the order. Their name was Anthony, and I noticed right away that they were on a bike, didn't have a profile picture, and didn't have any deliveries on a record. At first, I wasn't alarmed at all. I was almost amused, like, wow, guess I'm this person's first ever customer. But then a full 30 minutes pass with no driver movement on the app, and at this point, I think maybe something is glitching out or the driver is stuck. I contact support via the chat option, and they ended up assigning a new driver because they couldn't reach the first one. Odd, but whatever. Now is when it starts getting a little weirder. The new driver assigned is in the exact same spot as the original driver was. They are also on a bike and also have no profile picture with no prior deliveries as well. And this driver's name was Lori. I let another 20 minutes pass with no driver movement before I messaged them myself and say, "Hey there, are there any issues with the order?" The app shows that the driver saw my message, but no response. All this time, I'm checking to see if Uber Eats is maybe experiencing issues, none that I could find. And at this point, while I'm definitely weirded out, I'm mostly just hungry. So I contact support again to request some assistance. They reassign the driver again and apologize for the inconvenience. Same deal. They also try to contact the driver with no response. Finally, The third driver assigned is the exact same scenario. Same spot, on a bike, no profile picture, no prior deliveries. Only this time, the name is Robert. And before I can react and go about canceling the order at this point because I'm tired of dealing with this, he suddenly has my food and immediately messages me the following. Hello, have your food. What's your phone number? And I respond right away with, I'm not comfortable giving my phone number out when you can message me on here. And he responded again with, what's your number? Be there in 10. How old are you? And at this point, the alarm bells are going off and I contact support immediately to have the order canceled and get further assistance. I get connected to the Uber's safety team who informs me that the order has been canceled. I'll be refunded and started taking down the details of the strange interactions. As I'm giving the woman on the phone the info she needs, I'm starting to calm down, thinking this was just some creep or something. And that's when I hear a man's voice at the front door. In a very sing-songy voice, he said, Megan, I have your food. And I can't even describe the chill that went down my spine because of the way he said it. Making things even worse, the Uber safety woman on the phone with me heard him as well and goes, Is that him? We canceled the order. I poked my head around the door to get a look at him, and when he saw me on the phone, he went from smiling to looking furious. He suddenly got right up against the door and kept asking who I was on the phone with. And at this point, I started asking him to please leave because he's making me uncomfortable and he's getting more and more angry. He starts pounding on my door and grabbing the doorknob while shouting to be let in. The woman on the phone is asking if I'm okay. The man is still shouting, and I'm in full meltdown mode now and hastily close the heavy door to lock it. The man is becoming borderline belligerent as he kicks my door, and the woman suggests I should call the police. He ended up walking away from my house about a minute after that and backed up to the sidewalk. For a moment, I thought he fucked off, so I finished my conversation with the Uber safety woman so she could submit the report. Once she submitted it, I called the police and told them what happened. They weren't incredibly helpful since he didn't actually break in or put his hands on me, but they told me if he came back to call again and they would send an officer out. This man stayed in the neighborhood for almost 20 minutes, so I did end up calling them again to give a full report and description of the man. According to one of my neighbors, after she heard the yelling, she saw the man I described walk from my house to the sidewalk and hop into a truck with another man in the passenger seat. And that's when she walked towards my house to check up on me. Luckily, she was able to help give the officer a description of the vehicle and the other man as well. They apparently just sat there, staring at people walking by and being incredibly sketchy before driving off. I went to college in Florida. After graduating, the first thing on my mind was getting out of there. So I made plans to move across the country and start a new life. I was a 23-year-old woman with all the options in the world. Everything was in order. I quit my job, and a friend of mine agreed to take over my lease. I had been living alone in a townhouse since my previous roommate graduated, so my friend moved into the other bedroom while I was preparing to move out. One night, about a week later at 10 p.m., the two of us were watching TV when there was a knock at the door. My friend got up to answer. He came back with a bag of food from a sandwich delivery place, assuming I had ordered it. I hadn't. We thought maybe it had been delivered to the wrong address, but there was my name and address on the receipt. The phone number on the receipt, however, was unfamiliar. I called the number and someone answered, but they never spoke. I could only hear the ambient sounds of a room and breathing. I googled the phone number and it appeared to be through an app. I convinced myself this was some kind of prank or misunderstanding. A few nights later, another knock at my door. My friend insisted on answering again, and I heard him telling a delivery person that this was a mistake. She doesn't live here anymore. No one ordered food to this address. The driver responded that they had taken the order themselves over the phone and spoken to a man who simply asked for the specials and ordered the first one. It was the same number on the receipt. I called again, and again I heard someone listening on the other end. The deliveries kept coming every few nights. My move was delayed for unrelated reasons, and the longer I stayed, the more it began to really scare me. Why would someone do this? One time, I called the number after another delivery with my friend sitting right next to me. The stranger picked up the phone as usual, but this time, we heard a faint voice. Yeah, she definitely still lives there. Then sudden silence. I didn't recognize the person speaking, but I realized I shouldn't have been calling from my own phone. I never called again. My friend tried, but the person on the other end never spoke aside from that one time. Eventually, most of the delivery stopped, but someone continued harassing us for months in various ways. That phone number began calling at all hours of the day and night, sometimes more than 20 calls in a row. They usually called my phone, but called my friends sometimes as well. If we answered, they would immediately hang up and call again. I began getting random friend requests on every social media platform with messages such as, "Don't you remember meeting at the party last night?" When I definitely hadn't left my house in a week. Most disturbingly, someone also started throwing eggs at the townhouse, which suggested the stalker was local and knew where I lived. Maybe he was watching every time a delivery was dropped off. Maybe he was watching other times too. The only thing I ever learned was that he knew I hadn't moved. By this point, I was staying inside as much as possible, but you have to leave the house sometimes. I was terrified until I finally moved and blocked the number. My friend elected not to take over my lease, but I was always thankful he stayed with me those last couple of months. This was about 8 years ago now, and I still don't have the faintest idea who it could have been. My former coworkers and a few college friends knew I was moving, but I couldn't think of anyone who would have a reason to keep track of whether or not I did move. And I didn't recognize the voice that one time I heard it. To this day, I refuse to answer unknown phone numbers or unexpected knocks at the door. Even contactless delivery gives me anxiety. I'm always half expecting them to show up again.